Welcome back to a bit gamey and what I'm going to call Mars, Normans in Sicily. Mars is just my word for a current project, and Normans in Sicily is going to be my kind of ancient period project. So why the Normans in Sicily? Basically, when I say Sicily, I mean the Kingdom of Sicily, which in the early medieval period, which is includes southern Italy and Sicily. But yeah, so why the Kingdom of Sicily? It's basically because it's loads of factions, all kind of concentrated in the same area, fighting each other. So you've got in the area, you've got all these kind of Lombard dukes and duchies. So you've got Germanic clans, really, rather than tribes, who've taken over bits of southern Italy with Grecian peasantry. That's one of the things, is that Italy was initially colonized by Greeks or people from Greece. So Italy and Sicily has a lot of Greek peasantry with foreign elites. So in southern Italy, you've got lots of Lombard dukes and counts and whatever, controlling a fairly disloyal Greek population, and they're all constantly fighting. All these Lombard dukes and stuff, they're all constantly fighting each other. And you've got the Papal States just in central Italy, which is pushing for their own control. And you've got the Holy Roman Empire up in from Germany and in northern Italy. So you've got a similar deal there. So you've got various Germanic elite and Italian peasantry. And then in the south, and the two heels of the foot, you've got the Byzantines. They've got their biggest empire further east, and they got two kind of footholds in southern Italy. And lastly, you've got the Muslim or Islamic conquest. You got the Fatimids in the south. The Fatimid dynasty constantly fighting with the Byzantines, and you've got the I think they're called Zarids, but it's also a dynasty or whatever. You've got another bunch up around Tunisia, roughly, where Carthage used to be, and a separate branch in Sicily itself. So you've got a kind of a cockpit of all these different factions that are fighting each other, and so that makes it interesting on one level, that you've got all these constant fighting and competing factions. And the second aspect is that they're nearly all foreign, ruling over a peasantry that doesn't like them and isn't loyal at all, which gives a kind of interesting aspect to the thing, in that in a general kind of medieval setting, you have an elite and you have peasantry, and then some of the peasants get recruited into being infantry, and then the veterans, because sergeant originally meant veteran. So then you get the veterans from those recruited peasantry become the kind of middle rank. So you go elite knights with sergeants in between, and the infantry, which is kind of like trained peasantry, and then the peasantry. So it's like 4 tiers, and in most of these places, there's a bit of a split between the elite and the peasantry, which means the armies aren't very big, basically. Because the peasantry / infantry aren't very reliable, and so you're mostly, I mean, you can exaggerate, but it's mostly a fight between the elites which keeps the size of the armies down. So in the Sicily you have the Islamic elites. In the Byzantines is a bit better, in that you got your elites can recruit the kind of peasant infantry, but they're constantly being pulled to the east, the Byzantines. So that although they might be able to recruit a decent army, they find it hard to keep them there. They're more likely to be pulled away. And the Lombards are the same situation as in Sicily, in that they can't rely on the peasantry, which means they can't rely on the infantry. So there's a limited, the armies are kind of limited mostly to the knights and the sergeant veterans. Papal states a bit the same. A lot of the feudal land is controlled by the church, so which means they don't necessarily recruit. I mean, they do recruit some local fighters, but they're also more inclined to have mercenary groups fighting for them. And the Holy Roman Empire, they can have a decent sized army, but they're further away. So basically, the disloyalty and the fact that there's all these factions fighting over land means that the armies can be relatively small, and even if an army has got a load of peasants, recruited peasants, they're more likely to run away. And the reason, and so what this means is that when you have a small group coming in from outside, like the Normans, there might only be a few hundred of them, but there's enough to make the difference between winning a battle and not winning it. Because if a faction's got 500 knights and sergeants and a couple of thousand peasant infantry, and they're fighting 500 Norman knights and sergeants, then the peasant infantry run away, then it's more or less an even fight. So those are the two reasons why I think this is a good spot to have interesting kind of games. Is one that the armies are fairly small and the peasantry are very disloyal. So you can have kind of interesting battles with different troop types, and a relatively small number of particularly tough individuals like the Normans can make the difference. So anyway, that's why I picked this what do you call it? This setting for my kind of ancient / medieval project. So having decided on the general setting, I personally I like the idea of campaigns more than or linked battles more than just random ones. And so thinking in terms of campaigns, I say you've got three basic types. You've got situations where you've just collected armies of two or more sides, and you just make up random battles that more or less fit, and just and treat it as a kind of, it's not really a campaign, but it's like a pretend campaign. Which is perfectly fine. The second type of campaign, I'd say, is a bit like the computer games where we have a set of battles, historical battles, that you do one after the other, and you need to win to get onto the next one. If you see what I mean, and the sort of things like casualties in previous battles have an effect on the future battles. I've heard, I think that they might be called ladder campaigns. I'm not sure, but I'm going to call it that. If for now, for my version, there's a ladder of historical battles, and you just do them one after the other, and it's some kind of linked connection to them all. And the third kind of thing I think of as a campaign, again originally mostly from computer games, is where you actually create a map with the various feudal domains, and each one can produce a certain number of troops, and you play it as an actual campaign where where a particular faction will attack another faction, and the battle will come out of all of that. And I sort of like all three, and so I'm sort of thinking along the lines of having all three, but primarily having a ladder campaign as the first idea, and then maybe as a secondary idea have the idea of setting up a kind of a map campaign, where the different factions have their own kind of duchies or whatever, and they fight each other more or less at random. So what's the actual history? The starting point is, as you see on this map here, where you've got the Byzantines have got a couple of toe holes on the edge of Italy, and you've got a bunch of what I'm going to call Lombard sort of fiefdoms in the southern Italy, Salerno, Benevento, Capua, and Amalfi, and they're all very split up and constantly fighting. Sicily is Muslim. You've got the Papal States, and further north you've got the Holy Roman Empire. So that's the kind of the base set of factions. And you've got some Normans going down to I think it's in Benevento for a pilgrimage site to go to the shrine of a particular saint, and they get recruited from that to join a Lombard rebellion against the Byzantines in the Byzantine area. So they join that rebellion, and there's a battle at Cannae, which the Lombards and Normans lose, but the Byzantine winners, they hire the Normans to give them a castle as a base in the Byzantine area. So I don't know what to do about it. It's a battle that you're supposed to lose, but you have a battle that and have some kind of special objective that if the Normans achieve that objective, they get the castle. So that would be a kind of a special kind of battle. But anyway, after getting this castle on the border of the Byzantine area, they get attacked later on, right in 1022, by the Holy Roman Empire, and as far as I can tell, it's just a siege which doesn't work. So they survive the siege. So it's not much of a beat, but it's one. And after that, they just come mercenaries for hire, with all these different factions fighting each other. So I don't know if that's worth including in this or not. Right, and stage 4 is Capua versus Naples. There's various these factions trying to depose the rulers and replace them with their own puppets going on. So there's a guy, I think it's in Capua, who gets deposed by the Normans and the Byzantines, and then the Normans betray that guy for the rival, and then there's another thing where it's Normans and Lombards versus other Lombards. So that's a possible battle there, which ends up with the Normans getting the county of Aversa, and that's the sort of the second chunk of land that they get. Because there's the original place, including other bits they've taken off other people, plus this county of Versa. So that's stage 4. And then in 1036, the Byzantines attack Sicily and have a bit of a disaster, which sparks rebellions in the Byzantine areas, Apulia and Calabria. And the Normans join in the various rebellions that take place in those areas. And there are a couple of battles against the Byzantines at Olivento and Montemaggiore, or whatever how you pronounce that, which the Normans win against these battles against the Byzantines, and they get a chunk of Apulia and a chunk of Calabria captured from that, and which they combine into what they call the county of Melfi. So that's that bit. And then the final stage in this part of the history is the Normans are taking control of these chunks of territory of the Byzantines, and various other places, and they're creating a lot of rebellions because they're not very nice, and so there's sparking a lot of rebellions, and also taking chunks of Benevento, and which is angering the Pope. So yes, so the Pope decides to attack them, along with allies with the Byzantines, and they're both moving to attack the Norman territory. The Normans move north to confront the Pope, and there's a battle at Civitate, which it's got these tough Swabian mercenaries from the Pope and weak Lombard forces together, and the Normans win. Basically, they drive off the Lombards who flee away, and the left of the Normans gets held up by the Swabians, but eventually the cavalry who chased off the right hand of the army comes back and then attacks the Swabians in the rear, and that's that. So that's a definite beat. And then in the Treaty of Melfi in 1059, they recognise the Norman holdings of these chunks of that used to be Byzantine. So yeah, the history. I'm getting the history of this from a Kings and Generals video on this first stage of the conquest of Sicily, which I'll put a link to down in the just to illustrate or vaguely illustrate the territorial gains over this time. And it starts off after the Battle of Cannae, where they get hold of the castle on the border of the Byzantine territory, and then after those shenanigans in around Capua and Naples, they get the county of Versa. So you got that bit there, and then after the rebellions in Calabria and Apulia, where there's always rebellions against the Byzantines, they've now got these two big chunks of the Byzantine territory. And lastly, you got this expansion into the Benevento territory. So you can see the total area controlled by the Normans is increasing all the while. So in terms of beats, if you assume this is a ladder campaign, I take the beats as being, the first one is Cannae, which is it's set up for the Normans to lose, but there'll be some kind of special objective which they need to achieve to get their border fortress. And the second one is in the Naples versus Capua shenanigans, and possibly two battles, one with Normans and Byzantines versus Lombards, and one with Normans and Lombards versus other Lombards. So that'll be the second and third. And the next is the Byzantine rebellions, and either Olivento and Montemaggiore, or one of them. Some kind of battle that's between the Normans and the Byzantines. And the final one will be Civitate, which is Normans versus the Papal States. And that'll be the whatever that is, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, beats and battles, and each one. The idea being that the Normans have to win each one to get to the next stage, like it's a computer game. And lastly, the thing about the sort of armies to be building, I'm just going to assume for now that it's going to be, I'm going to use something like Lion Rampant or Oathmark or something along those lines. And so the armies, I'm going to, for now, I was going to assume the army is going to be like Lion Rampant. So the armies will be like Byzantines 12 points Byzantines and 12 points Lombards. Papal States will be 12 points Papal mercenaries and 12 points Lombards. Normans is 12 point Normans and 12 point Lombards. Lombards will be 24 points Lombards, and the Holy Roman Empire will be 12 points Germans and 12 points Lombards. Lombards in local levied troops, so local Italian sort of levied infantry. So you see that they're generic. This would be like a unit of 12 spearmen is like 4 points. So 2 units of 12 spearmen and 1 unit of 12 archers or whatever can be reused between the different factions. A unit of 6 knights is like 6 points. So for the Normans, for the 12 points of Normans, you just need 2 units of 6 knights, and then their 12 points of Lombards will be 2 units of 12 spears and 1 unit of archers, something like that. So it's not going to be vast numbers of figures. I mean, in fact, in the 5 armies there, that's it's going to be about 48 figures each, and some of them will be duplicated. So that's the general plan. But I say I don't have any of these figures yet, and because I will I will buy the ones that I'll need over time, but it will take a while. So what I'm going to do first is, I've got all these figures that I bought for ages ago for Frostgrave and Oathmark and stuff like that. So there's like Snake Men and Lizard Men and Frostgrave cultists and all that. So I'm going to use them to proxy them as the kind of basic units, the Lombards and the Byzantine infantry and such. So I'll be doing that first. I'll use them first to be the units that I want, and I have to buy some Norman Knights and some other bits and bobs, and just use all those fancy figures as my infantry for the time being. Okay, so I think that's it. Basically explains the plan. It's going to take ages, but whatever. And that's the history of the first stage of the Norman conquest of the kingdom of Sicily. And the next one I do will be the next stage in history, which is a bit on Sicily and a bit of the extension of their territory in southern Italy. Okay, that may or may not be of interest to everyone, but yeah, so I'm happy with that. Okay, toodle pip.